Hello everyone. I am excited to be hosting the 12th session of our webinar series Masters of Conversion, where you get to learn from the masterminds of winning website experiences. Like always, I'm your host Vipul, and I'm the marketing manager at VWO, a full funnel experience optimization platform. Joining us today is Ankit Gupta, who leads growth products at Myntra. Now, Myntra is India's largest online fashion store, owned by Flipkart, which was recently acquired by the retail giant Walmart. Welcome, Ankit, and thank you so much for choosing to share your learnings and your expertise with our audience today.
Thank you. Thanks, Vipul. And thank you, everybody. That's me, Ankit Gupta. I'm from Bangalore, India. And although it doesn't matter a lot while we are working from home in COVID, but still, it's good to know everybody, what's the background and what's you are from. I will be taking you through my learnings, something which I have learned leading growth products at Myntra, and my personal meetings with a lot of high growth organizations. So let's see. Look forward to the interaction with you folks.
Right. Right. So I'll just take a moment here to just inform usual stuff to the audience that, we like always, we're going to have a dedicated question and answer sections towards the end of the webinar. So guys, if you have any questions during the course of this presentation, feel free, to put those questions in the questions panel, and we'll take them up in the end. And also, we'll be making this session a bit interactive this time. So Ankit has some questions for you guys, and he will be asking them to you. And we'll be running polls as well. So if you have, we'll love to have your answers. So you can send in your answers via either chat panel or the questions panel. And of course, when we run the poll, you can always select the appropriate response there. Cool. So I think with that, Ankit, the stage is all yours, and you can begin with the presentation.
Cool. So should I begin or should we wait longer?
No, I think we're good to go. You can begin with the presentation.
Okay, cool. So just a brief about me. I have been in industry for more than 13 years. Worked in Myntra, Creditec, Naspers Classifieds, and Times Internet. Creditec and Naspers are companies in Germany, so I also got opportunities to work across continents and learn about different cultures. I also tried to start my own company twice, once in 2009 and second time in 2017. So that's brief about me. At the end of the session, I will be sharing my coordinates as well. So if you really want to reach out to me in future, please feel free to do so. So so let me give some time to you guys. Can you please tell me a little background about yourself? So are you from product, are you from marketing, engineering, or data science? So what's your current role?
Sure, Ankit. So I'll launch the poll right now, guys, and you can select the answers from that poll. Yes, I've now launched the poll. Can you guys see the response? Okay, yes, the responses are coming in. Ankit, are you able to see the response from the polls?
No, I can only see the values. I do not see the responses.
Okay, sure. Once the poll has ended, I'll read the responses to you. So far, the product management is leading, and marketing ranks second.
Okay.
Perfect. So we'll give another maybe 10, 15 seconds to this poll.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So 82% of the people have voted so far, and would really encourage everyone else as well to select the appropriate values. It will be great to know the audience that we have today.
Cool. Maybe we can allow them to answer the second question as well. So just you can type in where.
Cool. So I'll just close this poll for now.
Yeah. Okay. And then.
Perfect. So we are back on the screen, and the responses are that 47% people. It's a 50% divide between product management and marketing. So 47% of the audience of the total people who voted on the poll, 47% are from product management and 47% are from marketing. 0% are from engineering, while 6% are from the data science and analyst background. So yeah, that I think
Okay,
that gives a really good idea to us.
sure. Yeah. So some people have recently joined during the session. Probably, I would love to know where are you from, which city, a country. Are there people from across the globe? Yeah. So I'd love to hear on that as well before we start the session.
Sure. I think
Yes,
people
probably.
can, yeah, people can actually, you can input your answers using the questions panel or the chat panel. Hi, Kirby. Kirby is from Dublin, Ireland. Ali is again
Oh,
from Ireland. Zahir is from
hello.
Mumbai. Sam,
Hello.
hi Sam from Oxford, UK.
I'm not able to see the responses, but I am I'm thankful that you guys are taking time out and joining in the session.
We've got a lot of responses. People are from Austria, Chennai, United States of Minnesota, Bangalore, Santiago, Chile, Berlin, Oxford, Kathmandu, Nepal, Hyderabad, India, Mumbai, Amsterdam. Hello, everyone.
Uh,
Thanks for joining in.
yeah, good to know. So yeah, probably I'll start now. So the objective was just to know the audience better, so that I can probably give more examples on that particular domain. So that was my intention of asking these questions, as well as just to create some kind of energy within the group itself. Yeah, so this is the agenda which I'm going to talk about in today's session. Probably 30 to 40 minutes will be the duration of the presentation, and next 15 to 20 minutes I will love to answer any questions you have specifically. I really would love to hear more about the questions, because that's the way I can share more insights, and you can probably also learn better. Cool. So let me start with what is product-led growth. So product-led growth is a term which is not very old. It's been a very common and a more frequent term, which defines a new kind of go-to-market strategy that relies on product features, um, where product teams and product features and their usage are the primary driver for customer acquisition, conversion, and retention. So it's not the usual the sales cycle, or the jazzy part of the marketing. It's the product itself, that which a product use day in day out, that becomes a key driver for growth. So that's is what we call as product led growth. Now, what is the key difference between a product led growth and a growth hacker or growth marketer? So typically you would see this is a pirate model, triple A, triple R. I'm sure a lot of you would be aware of this. Typically, historically, marketing focuses on the first three parameters: awareness, acquisition, and activation. But in product-led growth, or the new concept of product managers driving growth, now PMs are responsible to drive growth from each and every aspect of AAA, of the user journey. So in this, if I have to, okay, I will not go in detail, but I'm sure you will know about it. So that's the key difference, where product comes into play in each and every step of user journey. And it's not just the first three, but the entire journey of 6 steps where product plays an important role. In the coming slide, I will explain how. So in the coming slides, I will speak about my personal learning while working at Myntra, Creditech, Naspers, as well as meeting some of the high growth companies, and specifically growth leaders in those companies. And I traveled and worked closely with leaders from these companies, Facebook, Netflix, Airbnb, Uber, etc., which are very vocal about the success of their growth teams. And based on that, I have summarized my key learnings, and this is what I'm going to share with you all today. So the first thing I want to speak about are what are the five key pillars, five principles, five tenets of product-led growth. How you can go ahead and follow the process methodology in each and every aspect of your organization. So first thing is incremental changes. What does it mean? So it means that instead of going probably the full blown big bang one release, you probably break it down into smaller MVPs. Identify your key hypothesis, build a smaller piece, and to evaluate whether you are going in the right direction or not. So that's the first pillar, that you do not go and build the entire full blown feature, you make incremental changes. Second tenet is you have to be in a pod structure team to avoid the bureaucracy, avoid the dependency in other teams. So what does a pod structure means? It means all the different, let's say, verticals like marketing, analytics, product, engineering, um, even let's say business owner sometimes, or let's say UX and designs, all work together in one cohesive team, and that team has one single North Star metrics, which is the third tenet. It's very important to define your North Star metrics and have that North Star metrics, which you can call it a success of not just for your team, but for your entire organization. Think North Star metrics as the one single metrics which your CEO will be going and talking about in the press release. So that is how you define your North Star metrics. There are obviously teams where the North Star metrics is breaking down into sub metrics, where there is a high correlation between the organization's North Star metrics versus a team's North Star metrics. But at any given point, your North Star metrics should be something which you can boast about in press release. So that's a single way or an easy way to understand what is a North Star metric uh, is different. So you will not probably talk about CTRs. You will not probably talk about people going from product page to cart, but probably you will boast about number of users converting in a day or a month or a year. So that is probably a definition of North Star metrics. I will also give some examples in coming slides. The fourth tenet is user centricity. So in each and every decision which you will make and an experiment which you decide, have user at the center of it. Make sure you are having that user angle and user at the center of every decision making, because if you really make their life easier, if you show them value, they will reward you back, whether it's some of repeat rate, engagement, or revenue, or, or subscriptions. So make sure that you have user centricity in every experiment which you decide. And the fifth and the last one is about experimentation culture, also known as A/B test. I will in coming slides talk about why it is important and how it can benefit you. But the fifth basically means that you, instead of going ahead and taking a more opinion-based approach, probably go ahead and do an incremental and A/B test manner. So having an experimentation culture is very important. I am sure many of you would have seen those talks on YouTube from all the growth leaders across the world who speak about benefits of experimentation culture. And briefly, I will also touch upon them. Now, there's another set of question I'm going to ask you after showing this particular deck. So I request you to answer this question in the chat window. The question is, let's say I built a feature and launched it in the month of April. And this is how the results were after launching the feature. The question to you guys is, would you call this feature a success? And if yes or no, how would you evaluate whether the feature was successful or not? Please take a moment, next probably 30 seconds, to respond back in the chat window. Vipul, can you hear me?
So guys, yes, I can hear you. And the responses are coming in. Since you cannot see the responses, I'll just read them out to you. Right, I'm just waiting for more responses here. Right. So do you want me? So I'll just walk you through all those responses one by one, right?
Sure. Yeah, or just summarize them. What are people saying?
Right. So actually, it's since it's a subjective question, people have explanations accompanying their answers. So, for example, John mentions no. He thinks that this wouldn't really, he wouldn't really call this feature a success because a success would be an increase in growth above the baseline. Uh, for Abhishek, Kumar is saying yes. Abhishek hasn't supplied a reason though, but Ali Healy saying yes, I think it was successful. I would focus on event tracking to see how that feature was used and contributed to conversions. Uh, no benefit having the feature. Arthur or Arthur, I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. So Arthur is saying success is when the cost of implementation is lower than the benefit of having the feature.
Interesting. Yeah.
Pulkit Zaveri has mentioned 2 points for his, I think, evaluation reasons. I think number 1 point is adoption rate is high, and number 2 is can help us get an edge during sales process.
Interesting.
Similarly, the problem is what would happen during mapping, and it is a based on success metrics, which was done before. What success metrics? It's a success if it. Puneet Jan has mentioned that it's a success if it moves the Northstar metric.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Cool. So I think I have the plenty of responses. My objective
Right.
was
So I
to,
think most people, the responses, if I were to summarize right now, most people are, taking the North Star metric into consideration and
mhm,
putting it at the core and believe that if the North Star metric is impacted, then only you can basically decide if it's a feature, if it was a success or a failure.
correct. So what if I tell you that this is the impact on that success metrics or North Star metrics, which really happened? So yellow is the line which you all saw. That is the world with the feature. And there was a blue line, which was world without the feature. So the point the objective for this exercise was to bring in the the importance of doing it A/B testing, because without A/B testing, it's very hard to gauge the impact, even if you have defined North Star metrics, right? So let's say there were n number of factors playing in at the moment. Maybe it was COVID, and suddenly the world changed. And if you were analyzing the results just pre and post, you will never be able to catch the exact output or outcome or success of a feature. Maybe people in India would know that the features and their companies were behaving very differently around demonetization time, right? Demonetization changed dynamics of a lot of companies. Similarly, COVID is doing right now. So without A/B testing, it's pretty hard to actually know the impact of your features, because you will be missing out a lot of other factors which are beyond control. So maybe the feature usage is increasing. Maybe the immediate metrics are increasing. Maybe the North Star metrics is increasing after launch, but it may not be necessarily just because of the experiment itself. Am I audible? I just saw a message that the network was patchy.
Yes, you are clearly audible to me. I haven't received any questions yet regarding the audio, so I think we are fine. But
Okay.
yeah, guys, if you face any issues in listening, Ankit, or looking, or maybe looking at his video or the presentation, just let us know.
Sure.
Everything's
Yeah.
working fine. Thanks, Ali, for confirming.
So the next slide I would want to really focus on. So if we all agree that A/B test is important, I would really want to focus on specific things to remember, avoiding these pitfalls when you evaluate your A/B test. So first thing is always define your success metrics before the start of the experiment. There's a famous saying, right? If you beat the data enough, it will start telling you what you really want. So if you do an evaluated experiment on a new metrics after the experiment, you are not really learning from it. You are just trying to validate your hypothesis which you already had in your mind. So don't do that. Define your success metrics or your primary and secondary metrics before the start of the experiment. Second thing, wait for statistical significance. It's very important to reach statistical significance on the Northstar metrics and not on the secondary metrics or tertiary metrics. Wait till you have statistical significance. Third point, do not conclude before you have the minimum sample size. I have seen in my experience that multiple times we reach statistical significance because of the sudden, let's say, upsurge in feature usage for a limited duration. But at the same time, because there are not a lot of takers for a particular feature, or over a period of time the enthusiasm died down, we saw a very different outcome. So do not conclude an experiment before you have the minimum sample size. And there are tools available. One of them is from Visual Website Optimizer, that what should be a minimum sample size for your feature. So do remember to run for minimum sample size. Third thing, always try to find out why the particular feature or experiment worked. Look for different secondary metrics which should help you complete the story, that why really that North Star metrics moved. So measure one true North Star metrics and multiple secondary metrics in your experiments. Fifth thing, probably measure the impact on platform. So what I mean by this is, let's say you launched a particular feature on a product page, right? And let's say it's a compare feature on product page. If you try to see the impact of the feature on the users who actually used compare versus the control behavior where the compare didn't exist, you are very likely to see a biased outcome. So all the users or the cohort of users who actually use the feature, they will more likely to perform better than the entire control. So the right way to measure an A/B test is see the impact on the entire bucket and not just on the users who actually used your feature. So for example, if you're launching a feature like compare on product page, typically 10 to 15% of the users will use it. If I look for North Star metrics of those 10 to 15% of users and try to compare it with the entire control, there will be a bias. And that bias comes because of two main reasons. A, there are always early adopters in any B2B or B2C company. Those users probably are more advanced and only they will remain as all the users till entirely if you do not learn from them. Second, probably, for example, I talk about compare feature. We launched this feature, but maybe users were able to compare the products without this feature in a traditional way. Maybe users were okay to visit 5 different product pages to compare. Maybe people were okay to go to bag and add those products to bag and then compare. So there is a very high likelihood that the feature is not really helping. If I look for impact on the North Star metrics only from the users who actually used a feature. So do remember, these are common pitfalls which I have also done in my tenure, and that's why I'm sharing with you all. So do not probably repeat these mistakes which I did. This slide gives you an example of different North Star metrics for different companies. I have consolidated based upon different articles on internet, and occasionally CEOs of these companies will use these North Star metrics in their press releases. One key thing to notice here is all of them are not like secondary or page level or screen level metrics, something which is more longer term. Second, each of these metrics is defined at a user level. So it's not like a screen level metrics like how many people are moving from here to there, etc. It's defined at a user level, and the key benefit to a user is clearly visible in each of these metrics. Now, let me talk about how experimentation really helps. So I think there are 50% of the audience is from product management, almost like 48% from marketing. So for each of your organization in your current role, experimentation will help you solve few major problems. First, it really helps in management of cross-team conflicts. I'm sure this is a challenge, and every organization, every team faces this. Multiple teams have their own metrics. They occasionally come across that how will this benefit me if I'm going to help you, right? So A/B test or experimentation help you increase collaboration. How? Occasionally you can work with them and say this is how this impacts my Northstar metrics, and I am open to have your metrics as the secondary metrics or sometimes as primary metrics so that people can collaborate. Most of the times, let's say the increase in one Northstar metrics will also result into improvement in secondary metrics. For example, if I'm launching a compare feature, it may not just improve the conversion rate or the revenue per user. It may also help other team who's looking after returns also to improve. So if people are more confident about the purchase, probably they will return much lesser. So this will really help you improve cross-team collaboration. Experimentation and A/B test also helps you handle hippos better. Most of people and people with a lot of experience, they have their own biases and opinions based on their prior experience. Experimentation really helps you handle those queries. So you can always say, yes, I agree to you, say with politeness, tell them, okay, I completely agree, but can you justify your opinion and say this is the single metrics which will be reflected? And you can include that particular secondary metrics in your analysis. So whenever you analyze your experiment, you can say whether that metrics really moved or not, and probably tell the person that this is how we are evaluating your opinion, so that the person is also happy that their opinions were heard, and you can also push them to convert their opinion into certain metrics which can be evaluated. Third advantage of experimentation is it forces you to break larger ideas into smaller features. Evaluate your hypothesis before full investment. So you don't really have to build a full big bang release and then evaluate the outcome of your experiment. You can, by default, experimentation forces you to evaluate one hypothesis at a time. To give you an example, if I'm launching two features on product page, one to make the CTA larger and make it, let's say, in different color, right? If I launch these two features together, I will not be able to evaluate the success or failure because for individually for each of them. So by default, if I really have to invest, I will break the entire change into smaller pieces. Similarly, if I have to revamp the entire checkout, probably I will break it down into each subsection, let's say each screen, and within that probably a particular widget. So maybe my hypothesis will be just around how to demonstrate or display bank offers, right? So by default, experimentation forces you to invest on MVPs and take your decisions based on that. I'll quickly talk about the iterative process for growth, which was pretty successful in my current organization. Um, the growth process looks like this. It starts with ideation and brainstorming, which includes most of the teams, most of the important teams within an organization. It helps me get better collaboration. It also helps me get the alignment later on when I launch the feature. And it really gives them value because they feel more empowered that what I'm doing is their feature indeed. So we start with showcasing data analysis, funnels, loops to a larger group. They come back and with some solutions. We go to design team and work on MVPs and suggest, okay, on the left hand side we will say this is a control and right hand side we will say test. Uh, and list down our hypothesis and metrics. Then we go to a forum which includes all head of departments, head of growth, head of analytics, product design. They critique on the feature. If we are missing certain features or they have prior learnings or data, they share in that group. The third step which we follow is feature prioritization and development. We follow a methodology called RICE, reach, impact, confidence, and effort. It helps us prioritize those features where we see a better ROI for our engineering effort. The next stage is launching the experimentation. So we typically do experimentation on 50% audience. It helps us avoid any kind of bias in the user selection. So, and the next step is learning based upon the experiment outcome. And based upon the experiment outcome, I can decide whether I have to continue to run the experiment longer if I have not reached statistical significance. If I see the experiment outcome is totally in negative direction, I learn from it that I have to do exactly opposite of this, and then probably I would see a positive outcome. The most something which I really hate is when the outcome is neither statistically significant nor negative. In that case, I really do not know what to move forward, and that's the trickiest part, where you see experiment not reaching statistical significance, and the movement in Northstar metrics is also not very high. So those experiments are something which I fail to learn from. So this typical process in my current organization takes around 6 to 8 weeks, and I will just talk about a few success stories in the coming slide. Following this process, we have a small team of only 22 members, and now it's been 26 months. We have been able to evaluate more than 800 product ideas in last 2 years, and that means almost 400 ideas were actually designed. We had control and design options for each of 400 ideas, and we presented to the entire group. So if you divide it by the 25 months, you will see the amount of the volume of different experiments we are actually able to deliver. Now this count is more than 200. So we have been able to build almost like 250 product features as of today, with a velocity of around 10 to 12 product features each month. And those who are product managers probably can like empathize that, okay, this is like any organization where I have previously worked, we have never seen that kind of velocity in terms of product releases. So it's almost like 10 to 12 product features a month, which is easily 5x of any other product teams across industry. Out of the 250 product features which we have launched, we have seen a success rate of 25 to 30% on our defined Northstar metrics. Northstar metrics for my team is average revenue per user. We only call experiment as successful if there is a positive statistically significant outcome on the Northstar metrics. And the threshold for statistical significance is 90% for us. So we don't call an experiment to be successful if it is 70% statistically significant. So it has to be a bare minimum of 90%. We also do not launch an experiment if there is a negative impact on secondary metrics. So for example, if we are launching a feature which may have an impact on gross margins or our profitability, so we will not launch that feature. So 25 and 30% is the actual count from those 250 features, which we have called them as successful, which have no impact on bottom line and zero impact on or zero investment from marketing side. So these are all product changes in the user funnel in different stages. Yeah, so one thing to really note is when I boast about success and 25 to 30% as the success rate, almost 3 in 4 times I am wrong. And this is the key takeaway, I would say. It's okay to be wrong 3 out of 4 times. But the rest of the 1 of the 4 times where you will succeed, it will give you immense pleasure, a lot of learning, and will also benefit your organization. So for example, in my case, the total outcome has been more than 25%. So average revenue per user has increased more than 25% in the last 2 years, just by doing these follow-up changes and product flows and user flows, small or big, and looking after A/B test results. Now, based upon my learnings in the last few years, these are 6 key themes, or core drivers. If you are going to invest on these and probably make flows changes, definitely you will see success in your organizations as well. And these are not just in my organizations. I have also read across, and other companies have also invested and tried this. They work. So first thing is, first key theme is remind users of core benefits. So for every organization where you work, there must be some key core benefits which you are offering. So for example, if I am in part of an e-commerce company, delivery or fast delivery is one of the core features. We let you evaluate the product for 30 days. So that's one of the core benefits. If you're a new user, we offer you certain incentives. So that is a core benefit. If you are on a payment page, we highlight you that our success rates, our payment gateway are completely secure. We also support cash on delivery and things like this. So across different screens, across different touch points of a user journey, do remind of the core benefits which they get. Remind them even small things like we sell fresh fashion. We have 7 or 10 step quality check before a product reaches to you. Remind them that we have a no contact or a contactless delivery. So this particular theme is about identifying the core benefits and communicating this to the user. Second key themes, which I am sure you would have also observed across your shopping experience: scarcity and urgency. So all, if you have used Booking.com, for example, they remind you that okay, only few rooms left, right? Running out fast. Create that urgency, not artificial, but realistic. But do communicate to them. Users have a tendency to delay their decision, and these markers, these themes really help you increase or forces the user to actually decide faster by showing them the real benefit. Right? So do highlight scarcity and urgency. So we use something like only few left, only 5 left, when we see the inventory is limited in stock. We also tell you that okay, X number of people have this item in their bag or in their wish list, so that you remember that there are chances of running out of stock. So that's second theme. Third is every user love discounts and anything free. So do mention and do highlight anything extra which benefit you are giving, whether it's free shipping, whether it's expedited shipping. You can also highlight loyalty points which a user will earn, and don't just remind on one step, remind on multiple steps. Remember, people, although we as a product owner sometimes think that okay, people will remember it, but that's not always the case. People will forget about it, and then it's your duty to remind them at multiple stages and experiment whether that is really having a benefit or not. So highlight anything extra and free, whether it's loyalty points, discounts, offers, do highlight them. Fourth theme is deploy gamification techniques. So by this, I mean you can add elements of serendipity. You can add simple elements in let's say in your animation. For example, we did a feature where we were animating the experience of the number of steps in checkout. Right. So another example for that will be using confetti when people earn scratch card. Similarly, let's say when you complete a transaction, you can summarize this by saying, "Yeah, you just completed the order," or creating some kind of positive animations to the users that this is what you have completed. Similarly, you can apply gamification in B2B companies. So simple things like percentage of profile completion, percentage of account completion, and tell them you are 3 steps away from the journey, 2 steps away from the journey. So deploy gamification techniques. There are other examples as well. For example, playing around and congratulating to the user. So for example, telling them your style matches with Shah Rukh Khan, or your style is very close to, let's say, Roger Federer. So whenever they purchase or transact with a specific kind of product, you can make them feel good, and by using gamification techniques. The fifth one specifically is around hacking growth by using simple and more attractive copy. I guess the few weeks back there was a session specifically around this, how copy plays a very important role in growth directions. So instead of using a lot of verbose communication, which is too complex, try to use as many words as possible. In terms of growth, less is more. There were specific examples in my current organizations where the communication was complex. We simplified it, added some iconography so that users can easily comprehend what we are trying to say, and we saw great benefits, like more than 1% increase in our Northstar metrics. So just by making simple copy changes. The last theme is reducing cognitive load. So what I mean by that is a lot of times we because of different processes in the organizations, because of different teams involved, because of technological challenges, we end up creating a lot of debt on the UI, on the interface, in the user journey. To try to avoid that, for example, we had a pretty complex coupon page earlier. We did multiple experiments to identify what the coupon page or coupon experience should look like. There were instances where we were highlighting, or those services which we do not offer any longer were also visible to the user. So it was creating some kind of cognitive load or dissonance to the user, and they were skeptical. What is something which they're missing? So always try to reduce the cognitive load. Try to make the decision more easy for your users, and that's what we mean by reducing cognitive load. Try to have minimalistic designs and elements copy, so that the decision making is much faster and easier for a consumer. So this is the 6 key themes. Yeah, I mean, at any time you guys are stuck and you really want to know more about individual experiments which I did on each of these themes, I will be very happy to answer you. But yeah, on broad level, these are the key 6 themes which really worked in my experience. So yeah, with that, I end the session. These are my coordinates. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Medium, and yeah, I would be very happy to take question and answers right now.
Great. Thank you so much for an amazing presentation, Ankit. This the term product-led growth. I've been reading about it. I'm not sure where it exactly started, but yes, I've read a lot of resources. Again, won't claim that I've read a lot of resources though, but yeah, from Open View Ventures, that's where I got to know some quality, information around what product-led growth is, and it seemed really interesting that users are really being put at the center of decision making in terms of even making a decision on in terms of what features you should be coming up, or let's say even if you should be really going forward with a referral program, let's say, in terms of growing the product in amongst the target audience. So I think it's a really cool concept.
Yeah, I mean, and uh, I would really boast about the impact rather than the coolness factor. Yeah, so and it's been pretty impactful. Yeah, and the kind of success which I have seen at Myntra is not the isolated one. So when I spoke to people at Airbnb and Uber, they were equally, let's say, happy about the success which they have seen. And I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg also attributes a lot of their success to their growth team. So that's the kind of impact which product-led growth can bring in.
Right. Just to check on there, have you switched off your camera or is it a problem at our end?
No, yeah, that was just me. I switched off the camera. I thought that I can focus on the Q&A part.
Okay. Uh, so I guess you cannot see the questions, right? So I'll read out the questions to you. I have a couple of them coming from different people. So I think 2, 3 people have actually asked a similar question. So I'll club them into one. They all are asking
Mhm.
about how do you fix a figure for statistical significance, and how do you fix a figure for the minimum sample size. So what do you have to say for that?
Yeah, so the statistical significance is something which you will have to agree as a group within your organization. So I would suggest it should not be less than 80%. However, let's say, so there are organizations like Facebook, Google, um, Pinterest, they go for 95% statistical significance, but their volumes are pretty high as well, right? We chose a middle path of 90%. However, I also know there are organizations like Macy's who agree even at 70%. But there is
Okay.
no guardrail. It's just that, okay, if you are taking 90%, that means whatever decision you are taking, it's there are 10% chances that you may be taking a wrong decision. So if you're defining the metrics as 70%, that means 30% of times your decision or the impact may be on negative side. But
Hmm.
I would strongly suggest that it should be definitely more than 80%. The second question is, what is the minimum sample size? So there are multiple online sample size calculators. I can share a link. Probably once I share the deck, I will include that in that deck. There are online. I think Visual Website Optimizer also has one link which allows
Right.
you to calculate the sample size. So you have to input your standard conversion rate from that particular step. You also have to enter your minimum detectable effect, and it will automatically reflect you that if you want an 80% statistical significance or 70%, what should be the minimum sample size. So you can use some of these online calculators to know what is the minimum sample size for your experiment.
Sure. Uh, Quickly moving on to the next question. It's from Pulkit Zaveri. So Pulkit is asking how to adapt product-led growth in a B2B SaaS so it can be mapped to sales.
Yeah. So first thing which you clearly mentioned is the Northstar metrics is sales. Um, and all the concepts which I spoke about can be easily replicated in B2B as well. So for example, I spoke about these themes, right? And they can easily be implemented, for example, in the login flow or a sign up flow for a user. That these are the core benefits for a company like Website Optimizer, right? But this is what you will get out of your tool. You can use some experiments on pricing to create scarcity and urgency. So you say, okay, this offer lasts only for, let's say, one day. Um, you can also communicate this is a benefit just for you based upon your need. So this is how probably you customize these themes for your B2B environment. Um, Other way to look at it is, instead of launching a full-blown feature, you probably try to experiment with smaller changes. One of the very common techniques used by B2B companies is actually to deploy a fake entry point. So just to judge how many people will be interested in a feature like this, they put a CTA somewhere and see and evaluate how many people are interested in that feature. So let's say you want to launch a feature where people can directly reach out to contact center, but you don't know the benefit. So you just create a CTA and a dummy CTA and apply there and see what percentage of your daily traffic, monthly traffic actually interact with this. Once people interact with it, you can communicate that you are working on this feature. This feature is expected to go live in XYZ time period. But this metrics will give you an early indicator whether you should really invest in certain feature of this kind or not. Same solution can be deployed to something. Should you invest in sophisticated AI algorithms or not? Right? How to judge that? So probably initially you can have a simple bot, a simple person to respond to queries. And if you see that really people are interested in something like this or not, whether you really need to invest in AI or not. So these are the kind of techniques which you can apply, or product-led growth themes which you can apply in a B2B setup as well.
Great. So that actually, triggered a question in my head because you come from an e-commerce background. So I just wanted to know, are there any, top three metrics or some key user behaviors that, that can signal towards product-led growth in an e-commerce business?
Yeah. So for an e-commerce business, right, there are typically three metrics which really makes so number of transactions, right, or the metrics proxy for that will be revenue per user. So that's one Northstar metrics. Second is something on customer experience side, so which typically is measured in terms of NPS. But a proxy for that metric, because NPS is so difficult to measure and very hard to reach statistical significance, a proxy for that metrics is your DAU by MAU, which is the proxy metrics for retention. So what
Right.
percentage of your you actually visit again and again in a month's time. And third key metrics is, which is very important for fashion e-commerce, is our return rate. So because what percentage of our people are keeping the items, because that is one key metric which has impact on the bottom line. So what percentage of people actually keep the products. So these are three key metrics which I will evaluate irrespective of whether I go for product-led growth or not. But these are Northstar metrics which you will hear CEOs talking about. This is the kind of number of orders we place. This is the kind of yeah, repeat rate we are seeing from users. These are the kind of new users we are getting. So these are top three metrics, I would say.
Great. So I have an interesting question from Pratik Acharya. Pratik is asking, what's the difference between product-led growth and lean mindset, or even design thinking for that matter?
Yeah. So all these are very different concepts yet similar. So lean or agile, these focus on doing incremental changes. And product-led growth also has one of these as their key pillars. Right? One of the key differentiated tenet for product-led growth is the focus on Northstar metrics. Right? So when you speak about lean processes or agile, they're not really focused on the impact. Probably the impact is measured in the efficiency improvements. But product-led growth is also about driving business outcomes from implementing these changes. So that's one area which differentiates. Design thinking again is it's about process. How do you include users at the center? Do you separate facts from opinions? But again, it stops before actually measuring the impact. And I would say the key difference again is experimentation, A/B testing, as well as having that North Star metrics or business metrics in mind as success or failure.
Sure. Hope that answers your question, Pratik. I was actually going through a pretty lengthy question that just came in from Aman. Let me read that in full to you, Ankit. So he's asking, when we look at incremental changes, is there a specific minimum time period, say 1 to 2 weeks, within which the product feature should be broken into and released? Because some features like revamping a checkout module that might reduce last level bounce rate might involve lot many changes that may take at least a month to develop and release. So is there any minimum standard time frame one should focus on for incremental growth?
Yeah, so we make sure that we break our stories or features into stories, and each story point is equivalent to one sprint, right? So that's how we define it. Yes, you are right. If you follow this philosophy, you should break, not necessarily go a full-blown change for the entire checkout. You should probably dig deeper. If you want to revamp checkout, which page of the checkout is more important and why? Let's say you have more drop-offs on the back page or the cart page, right? That's one way to prioritize. Second, on that page, maybe you have 6 different key benefits or areas or widgets. Which key widget is more important? So let's say you probably deploy certain event tracking and see where people are scrolling, at to what depth they are scrolling. And from that, you infer that these widgets are completely ignored by the user, right? Then you probably do certain user studies to call the users, call them to your office and say why they did drop off, why did they not move forward. From those inputs, or let's say even your inputs on Google Play stores will give you indications. These are the areas which are problematic for users. For example, at Myntra, it was the non-availability of free shipping, including inclusion of taxes in the back page. And we, over a period of time, we have taken steps to reduce that, right? So we learned this based upon customer verbatim, and we made sure that we focus on one change at a time. So instead of trying to make 10 different changes in checkout flow, we try to break it down at a page level and within the page specific widget level, and went about solving that particular problem by building certain hypotheses. So for example, a lot of users would say they were not aware that there is a shipping fee which was charged to them. So we made sure that people are seeing a shipping fee at the top of the screen, so that they are sure that they have seen that message that you are X rupees away from getting free shipping. So that's how we went about making incremental changes of revamping the checkout.
Right, that does makes a lot of sense. Hope that answers your question, Aman. In the interest of time, I'll just be taking up one last question, Swati, and that's from Swati. The question is, what do you suggest in terms of, or how do you suggest in terms of driving product adoption in an audience that has low digital literacy?
Yeah. So low digital literacy. Interesting. So and
Right.
you want to drive. Yeah. So I think you have to start from knowing your customers better. So you just mentioned one key point, that they have low digital literacy. But when you speak about low digital literacy, is it that they are only using your app and not other apps in the market like Uber, Flipkart, Ola, etc.? And that means they have low understanding of online business as a whole? Or is it that they have certain challenge in understanding language? So for example, are they user of language agnostic tools like Telegram, WhatsApp, YouTube, or they are finding it challenging only to use your platform, right? So when you answer these questions, probably you will know that users are not happy with the user interface. It's not intuitive enough. Or maybe you find out that their language, the preferred language of communication is different. And then you can go about solving those steps one at a time. The other way to solve this problem, or if you find that they are only not engaging with your product and they are still have other apps installed in their mobile phone, or they tend to use other news reading applications, etc., but not your application, is that you can try to educate them with the help of coach marks. So for example, whenever Google, for example, launches a new feature, they make sure they launch certain coach marks and educate users about those new launches. So this is the other way to increase product adoption. A, to use coach marks. B, changes in your flows. and C, probably trying to offer the same features in different, let's say, language, in different design language. So one is language, let's say the Hindi, English, and all. Design language by me, I mean that the flows can be altered. So these are three ways in which you can increase the adoption of a particular feature. However, if you find that a user is coming to mobile app just to use your feature, that's a very different ballgame altogether. So what I mean is users have no prior history of using online. They have never experienced an e-commerce, whether it's for transport, news, or for shopping. In that case, yes, you will have a very hard time. And organizations like this will have to really invest much harder and wait for a much longer period to educate users. I don't know where your question lies, which bucket, but I hope it's the first one, because second one, it's very difficult to solve just by product changes. It has to be also brand-led communication, marketing-led communication, which can solve this.
Right, that's a great answer. I believe you really need to break down the bigger problem of adoption into smaller chunks and then attack them. So I hope that answers your question, Swati. So it's 1 hour into the presentation. I think it was a really insightful session. I hope the audience also felt the same. And yeah, thank you so much, Ankit, for for sharing your insights and also answering the questions from the audience.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you, Apple. Thank you, everybody, and all the folks who were patient enough to join me for the session from different parts of the world. That really encourages me to probably answer your questions better. Feel free to reach out to me using the different modes of communication. I would be very happy to answer and help you guys.
Great. So, guys, if you have any questions, any follow-up questions on this presentation itself, or you just want to connect with Ankit, you can type in those handles, those letters in your search bars in the respective social platform, and you'll be able to connect with him. Great. So, yeah, and also just FYI, all our past inspiring sessions are available to watch without registration on vwo.com/webcast. So you can visit the website vwo.com/webcast to view all the past sessions and information regarding the upcoming ones. So yeah, with that, it's time to close the webinar. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe and wash your hands regularly. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.